So I dabble in, look at those. I dabble in melting metal, and I came to experience by mistake that if you melt copper and aluminum together, you get gold or bronze. It's golden color. But here's my experience. I've used this smelter. I bought it from Amazon for $180. And one of the problems I have with this is that all along the bottom there, the insulation is gone. So I saw on YouTube how they make molds, or they fix it. They use plaster, Paris, and sand. So I'm going to try and use plaster, Paris, and sand and fix this. And those little burners, I had to replace those because I melted those completely off. And then it was hell trying to find that at Home Depot. And plaster Paris is kind of hard to find too. The only place that sells it is Ace Hardware. And that's it. So this is my mold. And I tried a couple attempts of casting sand, and neither one of them worked out really well. This is my casting sand. At first I tried 20% clay. I used kitty litter. Clay, the rest was sand. Didn't really work out too well. It held its shape like it's supposed to hold its shape, but when I poured metal into it, it was too wet and the water boiled and messed up my mold. So right now I'm trying to, I've replaced I let it dry out for a week or two, and then I replaced it with vegetable oil. And when I try to cast something, the whole thing just lit on fire. So yeah, vegetable oil isn't the best way to go. So here's my next attempt on casting sand. I went to Walmart. I got these right here. Air dry clay. 5 pounds. So I got all I had, and then I took it and I put it in a bucket and I let it soak overnight. And then I used this potato masher and I ground it down to a slurry. As you see, that's a slurry. And this is going to be my next attempt at molding sand or whatever. But over here I have a bucket of frac sand, which I get out here in West Texas, anywhere along the side of the road. The finest sand you could possibly have. It is so fine that if I put that bucket in the back of my pickup truck and drive 10 miles, that bucket will be empty. So I'm going to attempt to add that to this and try and make some better casting sand. And then I'm going to pour it in this mold. And what I want to do is I want to cast. I have a couple of swords around here. Let me see, there's one of them right there, and I failed attempt at putting a handle on a replica sword, I guess. Yeah, it didn't work out so well. That's my first attempt with casting sand with the water. It didn't work out so well. And I have another sword over here I'm going to put a handle on. But I'm also going to use these swords in the mold and then cast full aluminum swords. And I also want to cast full copper swords, and I want to cast full bronze swords. When have you ever seen a golden sword of that magnitude? So my goal is to cast one of those swords The best way I saw so far is to stand it vertical, but since I can't dig a hole here, it's nothing but rock. I do have a service bay here that I dug that's about 6 feet deep, and I could put it in there, but once it catches on fire, it'll light my ceiling on fire, which is made out of plastic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come out here and pitch it at a 45-degree angle, and hopefully that works. Yeah, I bought 2 bags of plaster of Paris, so I'm gonna pour the clay in here, let it dry for a week or two, and then I'm gonna put this top mold on there. I'll take the plywood off and put the top mold in there and put plaster of Paris in there. And then that way I can tell if I have a reusable mold using clay or plaster of Paris. And if the plaster of Paris holds up, I'll use that. And if the clay holds up, I'll buy some more clay. Okay, I use the plaster of Paris. It's 50% plaster of Paris and 50% sand. And as you can see, I just barely was able to get it there in time. If you work with plaster of Paris, have it there, everything on hand, it dries literally in 10 minutes. So it took me a chore to make that more mold for the sword. And here, I'm gonna pour some plaster of Paris on this and do the top mold. I already did the bottom. And I took that out, put it back in, cleaned it up, put it back in. And right here is where it's gonna fill that compartment. So I just use some sand, and the end of the sword is going to be a ball. Okay, so got my 50% sand and 50% plaster Paris. try this again. This time, I'm going to add the baby powder. I forgot to do this last time. I poured the plaster of Paris in here, and I thought I was going to have to destroy the whole mold, but no, I was able to chip away at it and save the bottom half, so I didn't throw away a ton of plaster of Paris. And I should throw a layer of having dry sand. That's some on the bottom here. Oh, it's all right. Heavy dry frac sand. I was going to sprinkle some sand on top too, but we'll try this, see if it works. I'm going to use more baby powder. Can't use too much, you know. I hope this baby powder works. Now I'm going to try and not get the plaster of Paris too wet this time, because if you make it too soupy, it runs like water. But it does fill in all the crevices, and it is really good for some of the detail on the face of the sword that I'm doing. There's my potato masher. Where did I put it? Gotta have my potato masher. There it is. There's my potato masher. Still a little bit more soupy than I would like, but not as bad as the last time I tried. Could let it set up for a couple of minutes, but really not like to take that chance. A couple of chunks there, but that's okay. It's just a mold. Should take about 10 or 15 minutes to dry. And we'll see if that works. All right, it's dry enough. It's been, I don't know, 45 minutes. See if it worked. See if the baby powder worked. There's nothing really holding this mold together, so if it falls apart, it falls apart. It's gonna fall apart. Look at that, it worked. All right. Set this down carefully. Still moist, but yeah, it worked. Let that cure, but as you can see, right, the handle I'm using, it's got quite a bit of detail on it. plus the handle itself. And then in this mold here, you can actually see the detailing in the plaster of Paris. Okay, so I flipped it over. We got the other two pieces out. Now, I'm going to clean up a little bit. And it looks like I have a workable mold. To be loud. Blower might work better, but you can see plaster of Paris did just fine with that side of the mold as well as that side. And I cut a little keep in here, right there, for the sword, that part of the sword right here, to fit into that part right there. So that way when I cast it, it'll be a solid handle. Okay, so I pulled the top plate, and it looks like everything went well, even though it was liquid. So now I'm gonna pull that sword out of there and drill some holes for some vents. Okay, so I pulled the sword out of there, and I drilled several vent holes to let it breathe. And place that back on top. And just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna let it dry for at least a week because I don't want any explosions. Okay, so I fired up the old furnace after I fixed it. Heating up the crucible now. As you see, coloration around the bottom of the insulation went out, so I fixed it with plaster of Paris. Seems to be holding up. Didn't explode. This is a cast of a sword that's been sitting for a week. I just poured that, and I'm kind of hoping when I pour that, the moisture in that don't blow out. And then over here, I have I'm going to pour a handle for a replica sword. And then over here, I'm going to cast a dagger. See, I'm going to pour that one first. That one has only been dry for 3 or 4 hours, and same with this one. I'm going to pour that one first, and if that boils out better, then I'll wait a week before I try this one. Okay, I couldn't adjust the camera to give you live feed. Really like to have would have, but this one has been dry for a week. Didn't boil at that point, didn't boil at that point. At that point, when it hit that point, it started to boil, and it started spewing out right there. Not too much, just a boil. This one here I poured today, I got very, very lucky. Started pouring metal down there. It's only been dry for about 4 hours. and it volcanoed on me. And then once it died down, I poured some more metal in there, so hopefully I was able to save it. But yeah, I got splashed with molten metal. That was not fun. I think I got one spot on me that I got to burn. So anyway, I'm not in too much pain. I only got a little burn. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to melt this down, which looks like copper, but it's actually aluminum coated copper. So I'm going to melt that down, see what that turns into. If it doesn't turn out well, then I'll add some more copper bars to it and turn it into copper bronze. So it's a nice golden color. So apparently plaster of Paris is not reusable. It made it down to the end, but not very well. If I would have let it dry for another 30 days, it might have worked out better. But yeah, it pretty much destroyed the plaster of Paris. But it did get some good detail on the handle. It's about as far as it made it. And so melting this stuff down, as you can see, there's so much crap in this metal. It's not even worth my time. Alright, I'm going to pull out some slag. Where are my tongs? Oh, they're over here. These are tongs. So much crap in here. It's so light. This nice gold could go. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, dumbass. Found my tongs. That is a bunch of crap. All that crap. actually ended up with a quarter of a crucible of aluminum. Had all that. There might be a tiny bit of copper in there, but not enough to do anything with. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take, well, probably this copper bar right here. Add that to it. That'll be enough to turn it into copper bronze. If not, I'll take that other little sliver and throw that in there too. Okay, I took apart this one that blew up in my face, and it's bad, but it's doable. I might be able to salvage that. Bottom cast is so good. We'll see about the top cast. See if I can't salvage that. What I'm going to do is gotta remove that, and then if I can save the top cast, then plaster Paris might actually be the way to go. Alright, so this copper is pretty much melted. We're going to pull it out and see what color it is. Thicker gloves. Oh, it looks a nice golden color. Let's see. Nope. Needs more copper. What slag out of here? Yep, too much aluminum. Alright, melts more copper. Actually have some aluminum in it. It's more copper than it is aluminum. All right, 20 minutes later, copper finally melted. Let's see what we got. Slag. Let's see what color it is. It's kind of still a aluminum-ish color. Yep, needs more copper. only 10% aluminum, 90% copper. I don't measure this stuff out, I just guesstimate. When it looks pretty enough, that's when I stop. This one here is copper bronze. The percentage is off. It's more copper than it is aluminum. It probably needs another 2 or 3% more aluminum to be a nice golden color. What I'm thinking is, since I use this mold and most of the moisture has been spent out of it, I think I'm going to reassemble these molds and try and use them again. That one I don't think is going to survive, but I'm going to try this one. And if I can re-pour that one, I will. Well, copper's just about melted. A few more minutes, we'll be able to tell what color it is. All right, let's see what kind of color we got here. Looks a nice golden color. Shoot this crap out. Oh, the copper bar is still not melted. Nope, not gold yet. Let the copper melt some more. Yeah, this crucible's just about shot. Well, I don't know if you can see, but it's boiling, but that copper bar is still solid in there. Gonna wait for that completely melt. Alright, let's see if we got the nice golden color. Yeah, there's a little bit of oil on that grass. It's a nice golden color. There's a little bit more copper. Maybe not. That looks fucking nice. No, needs a little bit more copper. All right, achieved my nice golden color. And the red. Still so much crap in here. I'll wire that motherfucker out. I wore it out once. I'll wire it out again. Okay, so I achieved my goal. I got 5 more gold bars. And here it's cooling off. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more gold bars. And what my initial intent is, if those castings were held up to aluminum, then I was going to cast them in gold bars. And I can get a lot more money for a golden sword than I can for an aluminum sword or a copper sword. Alright, so I was really happy that the mortar plaster, Paris of plaster and the half sand did work in the kiln. Held up just fine. Yeah, next time I build a kiln, I'm gonna use that stuff. But as far as using it as a mold, it has to be 100% dry. 100%. I use the sand, the casting sand, and it did the same thing as plaster Paris. And I used the oil and sand, and it just lit everything on fire. So how these guys cast stuff, I'm not sure. It's trial and error. I'll figure it out eventually.